Most of it I'm doing with Visual Website Optimizer. I have some clients that use other as well, but whenever someone asks which one to use, I go for Visual Website Optimizer. Although I haven't used the other ones enough to really know if I would actually prefer one of them. I've heard good things about Optimizely, but I haven't really tried it enough to really know. So far, I'm going to go with Visual Website Optimizer.
Well, I think Visual Website Optimizer is great. I've used a lot of them, and a lot of my clients use different ones. But Visual Website Optimizer, the fact you can track revenue back to each individual page is just a clear key differentiator in the A/B testing software space.
Yeah.
Now, as you've done a lot of these different tests, have you found some similarities? And give us your top 3 tips that people can take away and maybe use on their own site that they could try stuff. We can be pretty general because we're going to look at some examples specifically. But is there consistency in what you think is actually made a better value proposition, or is that one in your tests?
Well, if we look at the testing, like how to test and what to test, people too much focus on just the words, not really what the words mean. And I have an example of that. But the point is that they for example, they test different headlines, but the headlines all mean the same thing for the readers or the visitors. So obviously it's possible that there is a difference, but it's very unlikely because the headlines don't make the visitors think anything differently. They don't make them feel anything that the other headlines wouldn't make them feel. So there's really no reason to expect them to do anything different. Yeah. And that's, I think, the main reason why so many tests just end without a result. I remember hearing, I talked with some people in Visual Website Optimizer, and they said, I don't think they wanted me to quote on the statistics because they weren't really hard facts, but the percentage of tests that are stopped before actually reaching statistical significance is significant. There's just a lot of tests just never reach that stage because it doesn't test anything worthwhile. It tests the words, not the message.
It's not a big enough impact that they don't see, and they get, they don't have the patience to really wait. They want to get something that really is going to work, so they stop it, restart it.
Yeah, and it's so much easier to just test the words than to actually come up with a different message. It's a lot more work, but then again, if you start seeing huge results, it kind of makes sense to do it anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Okay, well, let's jump right into some examples and take a look at some of the stuff that you're doing for clients.
This is an example that I use often. It's a fictional dog shelter's homepage or a landing page. And the point is that this page is now focused on just one message. And the message is that it's unfair that some dogs are locked in a cage and they can't really be happy there. The tagline is it says, giving dogs another chance at life. And the call to action button says, give a dog a chance to be happy. And obviously, the cute puppies and all that. The whole message of this page is that it's unfair and the visitor should do something about it. And the typical test could look like this. So this is what I meant with changing the words in the headline rather than changing the message. So the original is, when can we get out? And the test would be, why are we in a cage? It doesn't change anything about the message. Sure, it might have a difference. It might make a difference in conversion rates, but it's just very unlikely because it doesn't really change what people feel. So instead, when you start testing, the first thing is to test what reasons are really the driving reasons for people to take the action you're asking for. So the test could look like this. In this case, everything is about how the visitor can get a new best friend or a family member, not about how it's unfair that dogs are in a cage. The headline is very different. The tagline is different. Obviously, the picture is different. The call to action button is different. And if you test these two pages, this one and this one, then you're going to get very, very different results, or at least that's very likely. And when you see which of these two messages is the prominent or the one that people really connect with, then you can start testing other stuff. Obviously, you could test like a third message and the fourth message and so on. But I would start by testing all the main reasons you think people would be interested in taking the action you're asking for. So the next test, let's say that this original would win the test. So the next version could be this. you start mixing in the other message. And in this case, the headline is significantly different than the original. Now the whole page is no longer about just one message or one idea. Rather, it's starting to mix in two ideas. And if you go through this process and you really think of all the different reasons people might want to act, you can find stuff that really drives conversions much, much more than just changing a few words here and there that don't really change what people feel about the page. After you have found like the perfect combination, of course, you can then start to look into details. And if you use the 3-point framework that I explained, then you can start wondering, okay, maybe one of the reasons people not want to act on this page is that they lack trust. They feel that maybe there's risk involved in getting a stray dog or something. So you could start testing other elements. For instance, you could add an element that says every dog gets a medical checkup before release, because people seem to have this belief that stray dogs are sick or something. So by going through these, like the initial testing of the value proposition, the reasons that really drive the behavior, which is conversing, then you start off with major differences in conversion rates, and you really find the things that you should focus the page on. And then you can start adding in all this other stuff that they can make big differences. And I have examples where it has been significant differences even with very small changes on the page. But if you don't start with the big stuff, it's gonna take forever for you to get to the results you could get to if you started with big tests.
Yeah, I think you're really tapping into the overall psychology of people here. You're testing different variations of the photo and the headlines and the value proposition, obviously, but there's even emotion there. The pictures of the people are, happy and the dogs are cute, but they're behind a cage. So I think you're really tapping into some great ideas there.
Yeah. This is one that I did with Danny Innie, who runs Farpel Marketing. And this is actually something that I wrote a guest post for him about. And this isn't like a big secret or anything, but this was the launch sales page for his marketing training program called Marketing That Works. And the point was that he reached out to a few people he knew asking for feedback on his sales page. And I gave him feedback, but I also suggested that I would create like a competing page so that we see what happens. And I use this example often because it really shows that if you make small differences, you can expect small differences in results. So for instance, if I had started to really just change the headline of this page or change the copy here and there, we could have ended up with very, very small results, negative or positive. But since I did make a totally different page, we could also expect to see very significant difference in the conversion rate. Again, negative or positive. Sure. But in this case, it was only a week-long launch, so we didn't really have time to start seeing like really tiny differences in conversion rates. So obviously the pages are really long, but here's like the beginning of the page I wrote. And the difference was that this page created 423% more sales. So about a bit over 5 times the sales.
Enjoyed this episode of Marketing Optimization. This is one of the highlights from all of the video episodes that we have listed for you at the website marketingoptimization.tv.